Golf Smarter, number 692. Taking care of old Mr. Three-Wiggle. Become a better putter with Cody Hale of Seemore Putters.
This is Golf Smarter, sharing stories, tips, and insights from great golf minds to help you lower your score and raise your golf IQ. Here's your host, Fred Green.
Welcome back to the Golf Smarter podcast, Cody.
Yeah, thanks, Fred. I appreciate you having me on again.
It's great to have you on again because, you know, I'm a huge fan of Seemore Putters. Ever since I received my Seemore putter, I am totally dedicated to it, and I just love the fact that you guys are so open to help us give some away on our regular giveaways. We've made some people pretty happy by giving them Seemore putters.
No, that's been fantastic, and hey, we appreciate you being a part of the team.
Oh, thank you very much, and congratulations! You guys have a podcast now.
We do, yes. We just we're about to release episode 4 on Monday, so it's called The Putting Couch, and just everything we've sort of learned, you know, through the years of just focusing on putters and putter fitting and putting instruction.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, great. That's why I wanted to have you back to talk about those things as well. I hope we're not overlapping on your content.
No, it should be fun. We got plenty of good content coming, so yeah, excited.
Great. So let's do the format of the show is you and Jim Grunberg, and you have one other person that you guys just chatting, sitting on the couch?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So it's sort of our tour team. Ted was, you know, he was with us for, you know, about 12 years and, you know, ran the tour before actually I took over, you know, about 4 or 5 years ago. And he still handles a lot of our social media and still involved with, you know, some tour players he's worked with over the years. And then obviously Jim and I both spend a lot of time. Jim's our owner. And yeah, so it's us three that have spent a lot of time out there and a lot of time around obviously the brand and learning over the years. So just drawing from our experiences from those trips and what we've learned.
Okay. Awesome. Well, good luck with it. I'm glad to see you guys doing it.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah, you and I talked a little bit about doing something, but we're excited to be able to offer something like that. And, you know, just general, you know, obviously it's presented by, you know, Seemore Putter Company, but we're talking about all things putting and sort of how people, you know, just listening can improve their own putter, even if they don't use one. We'd love them to give it a try, but, you know, we want to sort of broaden their, you know, their reach in terms of what they can get from putting and how to improve.
Well, and broaden their understanding of what it is to find the right putter for you. And that's what I wanted to start with is talk about fitting, because we've talked so much about getting fit for clubs, and people don't, I don't know why so much effort and emphasis is put on a driver and not on a putter. It just seems a little bit backwards to me. And everybody knows that the putting is where the scoring is.
Well, and, you know, I mean, I think everybody, you know, to be honest, I mean, everybody wants to hit it a little bit farther, and it's a part of the game that's probably, you know, to practice a little bit, you know, easier to go hit balls on the range and instead of spending 2-3 hours on the putting green. But, you know, it's such an important part of the game, statistically speaking. You know, it's, you know, it can be, you know, 40-50% of the game, and so the most used club. So I think you're starting to see that side of it become more prominent. And, you know, we try to be a leader in that area. I mean, there's a lot more, you know, avenues to get fit for a putter now. And, you know, we try to stay on top of that through technology and just, you know, being around that side of it and offering custom equipment. And that's one part of it, the ability to find custom putters.
Yeah. Yeah. What does a person have to go through for a putter fitting? Let's talk about what that entails.
Right. And it depends on, you know, who you're seeing. For us, it's about, you know, when they come to see one of us or one of our certified instructors, they're going to get sort of a game plan that they go through. We're going to look at, you know, the aspects of the setup, you know, the stroke, what the face is doing, you know, what the shaft is doing through impact, and sort of some key characteristics and sort of how you're moving the putter. And then we're going to go in and determine what the right length is, what the right loft, what the right lie angle. Those are your sort of main components. And then, once you get those dialed in, then you can start looking at head style and what helps you aim it better, helps you return the face back to, the most square position at impact to get the ball started on line. But, really dialing in the length, the loft, and the lie are huge because it just allows you to repeat the setup more easily and get your eyes in the same position. And those kind of things help promote, better mechanics in the stroke too.
Exactly. But it's not like when you're going for lessons, on a full swing lessons, it's very different than getting fit or taking putting lessons. We talk about position grip alignment on full swing, but obviously there's so many different types of grips that people have. Not the grip, that they put on the shaft, but their personal grip, the way they hold it. Is there a right way and a wrong way, or is it all feel?
Well, and I think some of it's comfortability, but I think there is certain aspects of it that need to match up. And, a grip is very personal because it's how your hands fit around the club. Obviously grip, like you were talking about, the grip on the shaft, is dependent on how the hands will fit on there too, what size it is, what shape it is, but how your hands sit on the club, and I saw a stat, not too long ago of how many wins were on tour with a certain styles of grips, and still conventional is obviously the most used. But the key thing is that your grip sort of allows you to be tension free in your setup in terms of your hands on there, your wrist position, your forearm angle. So having your shoulders and your forearms sort of match up to your target line. By that I mean being parallel. Your grip and the components of your grip, the characteristics of it, have a lot to do with that. So if the right hand gets too much on top, it will actually cause your forearms to be a little open. So the style of grip does mean a lot in terms of how it will influence sort of the stroke itself. And so we do look at that, but there's so many different grips that are more than good enough to use. I mean, look at, you got claw, you've got left hand low, you've got conventional, you have, arm lock now, which requires a little different grip. In all of those, you can see that have performed at the highest level.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it's just about, the characteristics of that grip and sort of matching up some of the angles and make sure you're holding it the right way in that style of grip that you're using to sort of give you the best ability to swing the putter with the least amount of tension, the least amount of manipulation, which is going to help produce a more square face at impact.
Right. It's interesting because I think frequently I'll think about and talk about the grip that you have on the putter when you're taking your stroke, but I never really thought about arm position. Help me on that. You mentioned
it. So, a lot of times, like dependent how, if you're gripping it conventionally for a right-hand golfer, right, your right hand is typically below your left. So sometimes that creates a little shoulder tilt. And then if the right hand gets too much on top of the club or too weak, then what will happen is the right forearm and the right shoulder will start to become more open in the putting stance, which can influence a putter path that moves more out to in, or you cut across it. Vice versa, if you get you get too far underneath with the right hand and too strong with it on the left hand, then it's sort of the vice versa. The shoulders and forearms get close to the target line, which can produce a more into out path based on other characteristics, obviously. But that, it influences a lot in terms of just the setup position. And where you grip it, whether it's in the fingers or the lifeline, can change feel, can change, just how the shaft is set up in relation to the forearm. So there's a lot that goes into grip. And like you said, you just got to find one that also feels comfortable in your hands so that you're not constantly, sort of switching that up.
Right. So the problem that I have, and I either go left hand low or my hands are really at the same position. I mean, they're side by side with my four fingers pointing down. But the problem that I see that I tend to have, and it's also on a full swing, but I'm working on this, is I tend to start with my left hand. I'm right-handed, but I start with my left hand, so I'll push back on it, and what ends up happening is my left hand kind of rolls over. Right? Does that make sense?
Right. Right.
And then, of course, I'm just right of the target every time.
So you're creating a little more, a little more rotation probably off the start than needs to be. And so, thinking about, for players that do that, thinking about, trying to, a different kind of starting position or what moves the stroke, if it's left shoulder and right hand, or if it's, the center of your sternum, sort of the power source, and maybe a different way of sort of thinking about how to get the stroke moving back. And those are areas that we look at in terms of like what's the root cause of that, and watching people hit putts, because if it's something in the putter itself, is it something in the setup which generally creates that? That's what we're really trying to determine, is what's the cause and effect, and what's the root cause that's causing you to have more rotation, and then determine in sort of a solution to help, whether it's, it's a training aid that gives you great feedback, or it's just a simple, mindset of how you're going to get the putter head started, in the backstroke. That's sort of what we're trying to determine.
Right. So help me. How do I need to focus more on starting with my right hand pulling back, or am I creating a problem with that left hand push?
I think it starts with trying to keep the same angle that you start with on the left hand. So when you take your grip and you set up, there's a slight angle that's created. And trying to maintain that angle and sort of control the stroke with your bigger muscles, shoulder, sternum, your pectorals. So, I like to think about the stroke being controlled from sort of the center of the sternum, and then the shoulders and arms and everything working together, because that's sort of your center power source. And so what that allows you to do is sort of allow your hands and arms to work as one unit.
Okay. All right. And back of my left hand should be pointing at the target all the time? Is that the right position, or?
I wouldn't say necessarily all the time, but I think more than anything that angle stays pretty much the same throughout.
Right.
So when you take it back and when you take your backstroke, that angle, that the left hand's not turning over in order to compensate for something else. So you probably would have to feel like that the putter's staying a little lower and a little more shut on the way back in order to get the face to stay on plane longer.
Right.
So that left wrist angle just staying nice and sort of solid, you may feel like it stays to the target, but it may not be pointed exactly at the target.
Oh, that's probably true. But I've got my rifle scope technology on my Seemore putter. It's amazing to me how well that works.
And you know what? That's a great point, because it was designed around to help it set up, right?
Yeah.
To make sure you're in a consistent setup. The rifle scope, the red dot, and the 2 white lines on the back of a Seemore putter to help you start in the same position, sort of like a great free throw shooter, right? You're starting in the same routine, the same setup, in the same position. You start to develop better touch, feel, actually. But, once the stroke starts moving, that's not to say that it's going to do the same thing every time. So one of the beauties of rifle scope and the red dot is that not only is it going to help you at setup, but if you're just practicing on the putting green or taking a practice stroke, you can take a backstroke and sort of look at where you're positioning. And if you see a little bit of that red, you might be over rotating it or under rotating. So you can sort of watch that through the stroke and make sure you're creating a consistent path, because you can hide the red dot throughout that stroke. Obviously, you'd be watching the putter, and you wouldn't want to do that while you're putting that into play because you're focused on the golf ball. But during a practice session, it's a great tool to have because it creates a consistent path. So when you take a backstroke, you can check it, make sure the red dot's hidden, take a follow through and check it. And that's sort of showing you what a consistent backstroke and follow through should be like.
So if I'm watching the club, which I wouldn't do when I'm regularly putting, but while I'm practicing, if I'm watching the club, are you saying that it needs to rotate, the club head needs to rotate so that the red dot is hidden at all times?
You can hide the red dot at all times. And it'll just give you a little bit of a reference point for what it's like to keep the face pretty much square to the plane. Mm-hmm. And what that means is that the face is not rotating off your path to where you're having to manipulate it back when you get to impact. So yes, you can hide that red dot throughout the stroke just to give you an idea of what a consistent path feels like.
Okay. Hey, we're at the turn. Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back, and I'll meet you at the next tee box. Cody, it was interesting the other day. I was talking to one of my neighbors, and he was like, yeah, man, I'm just stuck at bogey golf. And I said, well, what are the holes in your game? And he's like, holes in my game? It's like, how can you improve if you have no idea what you're doing? It's the whole thing of like, I'm just going to go practice what I do well.
Yeah, I think to get better, you got to understand your strengths and weaknesses. Even for even like you said, for the average golfer who, doesn't necessarily break 90, you still got to understand, what's causing you to not be able to break 90? Is it driving the golf ball, which is extremely important because you're putting yourself in play and giving yourself better opportunities into the green. But also, is it inside 100 yards, chipping and putting? And a lot of that comes down, from the guys I've worked with, over the last 5 or 6 years, is it comes down to the short game. They don't see themselves as bad putters, but then when you start digging into it a little deeper, oh well, I did 3-putt 5 times yesterday, or I 3-putted 6 times. And that you start to understand like, okay, well, it just doesn't seem that bad as it does as blowing a drive way offline. And I think that it goes hand in hand with a lot of people practice, more on the range than they do on the short game and putting. But you start looking at it like that, and then, how can we improve? Well, let's put together a game plan, and it's pretty simple for a lot of people. You just got to spend more time out on the putting green.
Yeah.
Obviously practicing the right things, but the more time you do it, the more repetitions you get in, the better you're going to be at it. And especially if you do nothing other than just have better speed control. And it's amazing what that will do in terms of leaving yourself with better opportunities and minimizing the 3 putts. You go from having 38 putts to 32 or 3 putts. Well, there's your 4 or 5 strokes, right off your game right there.
Yeah, exactly. When I asked him, I said, well, how's your short game? And he goes, I'm pretty good at putting inside of 10 feet. And I'm like, wait. I meant like, how are you at 30 yards and 40 yards? Oh, well, then his eyes rolled and he was like, yeah, I'm not that very good. Well, maybe that's what you should be working on. He said, but I drive the ball. No, maybe you should be. Anyway, you brought it up. I wrote it down. Let's talk about warming up. Had a great conversation in the last episode with Josh Zander, and we talked about what it is to warm up for your round versus a practice round, or practicing versus warming up and getting ready for your round. Take me through your putting warm up before a round of golf.
Well, I think it's important. One is to sort of, you wake up and you feel different each day. So it's important just to get out there and sort of get the feel of the greens again, because they may have changed, day to day, and from the practice round to
I don't play the same course every time. I'm not
exactly. So different green types, grasses, the agronomy is different, right? So to me, it's about getting the speed dialed in first. So I like to go hit 20, 30, 40-foot putts with a target goal of, getting them to the hole, but no more than 2 feet past. So what we'll do is we'll go lay a club down. We'll have it, about 2 feet past the hole, and we'll hit, sort of 3 putts from 20, 30, 40 feet to sort of get the idea of what it feels like to hit those putts that distance. And in the sort of the feedback, you hit one short, one long, you're going to be able to start developing that feel and just get used to the greens that morning. And then, also sort of, after you've done that, I like to, have our guys hit a lot of 3, 4 foot putts that give you high percentage of mates. You want to see yourself make it from a mental standpoint, right? You want to see the ball go in the hole. You want to hear that sound. And I see so many players get out there and just hit 10-foot putts, and they'll just bang 10-foot putts, an hour before the round. And they watch themselves, tour average is 38%, during a round of a mate percentage, right? So you're not going to necessarily make a ton of putts from 10 feet. And so if you're sitting there watching yourself miss putts, you want to start out in a really good mindset, right? Mentally. So I like to have our guys just knock in a lot of 3-footers, get really confident on that. And then, just hit a lot of different links of putts just to sort of get the feel of it that day. And I think we go through sort of a practice plan like that. And it's not so much about we're working on any technical things before the round. We're just sort of getting the feel for that day. We may occasionally implement, just checking, making sure our setup's dialed in. If we've been struggling, we may get on a mirror, check our body alignment, make sure we're, getting in the positions we want to be in. But other than that, we're really just trying to get the feel before we go out there. We're not really working on a ton of mechanics because we want to get in sort of the mindset of, hey, our ultimate goal is, that we got to be more target focused than we got to be worried about our stroke. So we're going through those kind of workouts prior to teeing off.
Right. I was always trying to figure out, how do you determine the speed of the greens based on the practice putting green? And somebody, once responded with, well, they're all using the same mowers to cut the grass. So you can pretty much be assured that the practice putting greens are going to be close to what you're going to find out on the course. Other than just, I'm sure you have more. I'm thinking about, how do you determine what the speed is going to be that day based on your normal stroke? Not just like, all right, 20 feet, 20, 30, 40 feet, but based on what my normal stroke would be without thinking about distance or anything. How do I determine what the speed is?
Right. And hopefully the greens are, the practice green is close to what's on the golf course. And, that's not always the case, but hopefully. But yeah, so what we would generally do is, and I like to have, if we are hitting, those 10-foot putts, a lot of times I like to do is I like to set a tee in the ground. So you're not even hitting to a hole. Mm-hmm. So you're basically just calibrating to a tee. So what we'll do is we'll get into, we'll set up a uphill putt, a downhill putt. We'll set a tee in the ground. And what we're just trying to do is roll it. What length of stroke requires us to roll it up against that tee? And so you're trying to be very, very precise. And then that way you can start to sort of calibrate that. The opposite side of that also is to, to hit a putt sort of at the, just to hit a putt on a flat surface, and take, just a normal, if you've got it calibrated in for what's a normal 10-foot putt, is to hit it and then, walk that off and see how far that those putts are going. And that's that for people that are more calibrated, that's a great thing to do. But we love to be able to have, set a tee in the ground, have a target so that if you're just hitting a putt to nothing, then, did you take it a little longer back? Did you speed it up? So we want to have some type of calibration method to determine, the dispersion, so setting a tee in the ground, we're hitting, 10, 12-foot putts to that tee. How close can we get it? And just trying to develop, great touch and feel around that kind of system. And again, you're not watching yourself miss putts at that point. You're just hitting to a specific point.
So another thing that I try to do, and I'm only suggesting that I do these because I want you to say, yeah, that's not going to help you at all. Here's another way of looking at it, is I'll go from one end to the practice putting green and try to get the ball just to just like kind of bounce up to the fringe to the complete opposite side. It's like, what does it feel like? What is the speed all the way across? I'm talking about 60-foot because I've had 60-foot putts, unfortunately, right? And so it's like, how much is it going to take for me to get this all the way across? What does that feel like? Because the long ones are the ones where the 3 putts really come into play because you're leaving yourself 15 feet on the second putt a lot of times on those really long ones.
No question. I don't think enough of us hit those putts that are that long, enough times on the practice green because like you said, the first hole you go out there and the pin's on the back and you hit it on the front right, pin's on the back left, you've got 60 feet and you have no idea, how to even judge that distance. So right. Yeah, I think it's important. And like you said, hitting it up. I had a college coach one time that used to, back when I was playing in college, that he would use to make us hit it up against the fringe and try to roll it right up against that. And that's sort of the tee mentality, is that you have a specific point that you're trying to roll it up against, touch. So, but no, I think hitting putts at that distance are great. And to be honest, for your listeners, if you could get it within a 3-foot circle at that kind of distance, if you can mark off, even if you're hitting it to a hole and you can mark off a 3-foot circle and anything within inside that 3 feet, I mean, that is more than great from 50, 60 feet.
Yeah, absolutely. You're not trying, when you're 60 feet away, even though on TV, you're on the green and they're going, he's putting for birdie. He's 180 feet. What do you mean? Like, he's not, it's like, all you got to do is just get me close. Just get me close. If it goes in, that's a bonus, but don't count on it.
Yeah. And your percentage of makes are so high, from 3 feet than 6 feet. So, just the ability to get it within inside that 3 feet range, you're going to make more putts. So, right. And you can give yourself a better opportunity to 2-putt. But the one thing is I think with going back to the point of like, what do you do before you go out and around? I think it's great to hit a bunch of different variety of putts, and that's why those distance control putts and not hitting the same putt from 20 feet or 10 feet or 3 feet. Hit a bunch of variety of distances so that okay, well, I've already practiced the 3-footers, I've already practiced the 10, the 20, the 30, 40 footers, so I've hit a variance of those different lengths versus just hitting one length before you go out. You're not going to have any idea. It's sort of like I relate it to throwing cornhole. I mean, most people have done that now. Is if you haven't thrown yet, you're likely to throw one over. Well, it's because you hadn't pitched any yet. But then the next one may be short. Well, then the next one hits the board. It's because you're starting to get that feel better because you've thrown one long, one short, and then now you've hit the board on one. So those practicing the different distances is just going to help you further calibrate your feel.
Right. For you, when you're going out to play, how much time do you allow yourself to warm up? What does your warm up entail, and how much of that is putting?
So
that's actually one question. I just kind of rolled it all into one.
To be perfectly honest, I don't warm up enough now. I don't play enough. So
Busted.
I need to start, preaching what I teach, or vice versa. But no, I need to start doing exactly what I teach. But it's, I get out there and I don't have enough time, so I'm running to hit a few putts before we go, and then the first shot I'm hit's on the first tee most of the time. But no, but if we've got enough time and we're going out for a Saturday game, and I like to give myself 1 hour, and that allows me, more than that, I feel like I start getting too much of trying different things, working on the swing. Less than that, I feel rushed. So an hour for me is great. And I think that's important to figure out, as you start, because I think you need to, obviously you got to stretch and get loose and all that kind of good stuff. But, you don't want to give yourself too much time to where you get out on the range and you start, you always hear, I hit all my good shots on the range. Well, you get into, you start hitting a lot of shots in the range and you start working on mechanics and all that kind of good stuff. So I just like to give myself an hour, go warm up, get loose, hit some different shots, work on tempo on the range. And to me, I try to spend half my time putting. So 30 minutes on the putting green. And most of it, like I was saying earlier, is just getting used to the feel. I'm not really working on mechanics. I'm just more or less just sort of, getting the feel of the greens those days, hitting a lot of different styles of putts, watching myself make a lot of putts from, short range. And then, that's what I'm doing right before I go to the tee. So I'll go hit balls, get loose, and then I'll go putt for about 30 minutes, and then I'm ready to go to the tee.
Do you include in that putting time, like chipping around from the fringe and just the rough around it? Do you spend time doing that as well?
Within that 30 minutes, I probably only spent, I'm hitting a few chips while I'm on the range, and then I'll hit additionally a few chips while I am around the putting green. If the course allows it, and they've got a chipping green that is, equal to the greens on the golf course, just to get the feel for how far the ball's rolling out each time. How far do you have to land it? How far are the balls rolling out for each sort of different shot? And, and I think that's important because you're obviously going to miss a lot of greens. And so, being able to have the, just the feel for what that ball is going to roll out. But I'm spending probably the majority of my time, on the putting green. And that's come with experience of doing it. Used to, it was the other way around. I'd go hit balls and hit balls and hit balls. And, I'd only leave myself a few minutes to putt. And then I got on the first green and you'd have, like you said, 30 feet and I have no idea how to judge the distance. Well, you start the day with a 3-putt. It's not, not the great for your, it's not so great for your mindset to start with a 3-wiggle. So, spend more time on your putting, get used to the greens because you're going to be spending a lot of time out there.
Did you just call it a 3-wiggle?
3-wiggle, Mr. 3-wiggle.
I've never heard that before. Mr. Wiggle. Okay, Mr. 3-wiggle.
That's 10 Cup, by the way. If you've ever watched the 10 Cup. Oh, Mr. 3-wiggle.
Okay, yeah, okay, now I get it. What is we're going to wrap it up here, but tell me the newest drill that you've seen on the green, the putting green, practice putting drill that you've been introduced to that you went, ooh, that's a good one.
Well, that's a great question. I'll
call you next
week. I think probably the best drill, and this one is, I've seen this one, quite a bit, but one of the cool drills that we've done is this one has to do with sort of speed control. I've got 2 of them, but one of them was, we use, a lot of guys use this perfect putter on the golf course, right? Or excuse me, on the practice green. And it's a ramp that allows you to slide the ball down the ramp. So you basically roll a perfect putt and you can see the break and what it's like. And it's a number system. So it'll show you how, you can sort of calibrate it and say, okay, well, I'm going to drop it from 0, on all these putts. And one of the really cool things that we've done, and I saw a guy do one time, is you take the hole and if the hole's a little bit tilted, so you can find an uphill, putt, downhill putt, left or right on the same hole, and we drop it from the same position. So it's all the same speed. All the putts around the hole will go in a circle with like 8 or 10 tees, and we'll go in a circle and drop that ball from the same spot on that ramp. And so basically uphill, you would have a shorter putt. Downhill, you would have a longer putt, but they're all the exact same speed. So it's the same stroke for every single putt around the hole, but they're different distances. Mm-hmm. So wrapping your mind around that and trying to know that I'm taking the same stroke for all these putts, but they're at different distances because you have an uphill, a side hill, a downhill putt. It's one of the coolest drills I've seen. And, not everybody has access to one of those, but it's one of the really cool drills I've seen on tour. And then the other one is
something that we can do.
Yeah, no, the other one. Well, you can set up different tees and sort of, and that's one of the great things about that warm up. You can set up different tees. So if you go around the hole, instead of setting them all up from 3 feet, set one of them up from 3 feet, the next one up at 5, maybe the next one up at 2, the next one at 6, so that you go, you're not hitting the same putt in a circle drill all the way around the hole. You're hitting different distances. And I see that one a lot on tour as well. And I think that's great as well. So you're not just sort of getting in a rhythm and getting static. You're changing your practice up and challenging yourself. And then the other one I see a lot is these gait drills that we're seeing created. So you set your putter down and there's gaits that are set up sort of for you to swing the putter within those gaits in order to provide great feedback on the stroke path. So I think so many people don't, what's real and what we feel are generally, two opposite ends of the spectrum. So, so a guy that takes it outside the end may not feel like he takes it outside. So in order to gain proper feedback, we set up these gaits with tees so that you can swing your putter through those tees. And if you do it correctly, you don't touch the tees. If you do it incorrectly, you're going to hit one of the tees, and you start to understand what your tendencies are in the stroke. Is it that I take it a little too far inside? Is it that I take a little too far outside? Or, whatever it is, you understand your tendencies, and that way you can keep an eye on them and sort of track that and how it improves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Okay, I need to ask you this because I heard this on your podcast and I thought it was a really fascinating topic. And not to go too long with this, but you talked about a putt uphill and a putt downhill and which ball gets there quicker and how most people don't get that right. Go ahead and talk about that.
So, the quick explanation, and this is another great way to sort of judge distances. So once you hit a ball, how long does it take to stop? Right? From the time you hit it, how long does it take the ball? It's going to trickle and trickle and trickle. How long does it take to stop? 1001, 1002, 1003. So most people would think, well, it's a downhill putt, it's going to take less time because it's quicker. Well, that's the opposite, right? Yeah. But it's actually the opposite of that, because that ball is rolling slower, but it's continuing to trickle out. So, you hit a downhill putt and it's going to continue going. An uphill putt's going to be quicker speed, but it's going to come to a stop much faster. So wrapping your mind around the time that it takes for a ball, when I hit this, how long is it going to take to stop? And, I would challenge, to go out and hit a putt just to a random spot. And as soon as you hit it, track it. In 1001, 1002, 1003, and see how long it takes. Because my guess is the very first time you do it, it's not even going to be close. And hit like a 20 or 30 foot putt, because that downhill putt, when you start understanding that, an 8 foot downhill putt might take 7 or 8 seconds to stop, you understand, I can't hit this putt that hard. So I've got to sort of back off of what I really originally thought I was going to do. And it's sort of a great concept at a very high level. We were talking about this with an instructor that teaches a lot of tour players, and that's sort of what they talk about is, understanding how long a putt, how far it's going to roll out, how long it takes to do that.
Awesome. Cody Hale, Seemore Putters. Thank you so much for coming back on again, and good luck with your podcast, The Putting Couch. And I'm bringing you back, man. You can't get away from me, though. You can have your own show, but I'm bringing you back.
Sounds great. Hey, I always enjoy being on. I appreciate it, Fred.
Hey, we've got some pretty compelling giveaways coming up, and our next one is a $100 Amazon gift card courtesy of Autoslash.com. Deadline for entry is midnight Pacific time, 3 a.m. Eastern, Sunday, June 11, 2019. Sign up at golfsmarter.com and click on the Enter Now banner at the top of the homepage. If you're checking out Golf Smarter for the first or the second time, thanks so much for joining us. If you're new to the game, a scratch golfer, or even an instructor, let me say that this podcast focuses on increasing your golf IQ and lowering your scores by speaking to coaches who cover all aspects of the game. You may not always agree what one of our guests has to say, but that's the beauty of golf, isn't it? What works for Brooks, Bryson, Tiger, or Phil may not work for you, which is why I'm not reporting on what the pros are doing. Golf Smarter has been publishing new episodes each week since 2005, and because podcast aggregators don't carry more than 300 episodes, we've recently gone back to our archives to bring back the best instruction ever offered in a new podcast we call Golf Smarter Mulligans. Golf Smarter gets published each Tuesday to get you through your week, and then on Friday morning we deliver mulligans to help your weekend round. This week on Mulligans is part 2 of our conversation with Fred Shoemaker of Extraordinary Golf and his book Extraordinary Putting, which kind of complements this episode with Cody Hale perfectly. Get your free subscription wherever you get your favorite podcasts and have it downloaded automatically. Golf Smarter Mulligans is supported by Autoslash.com and TwoGuysWithGolfBalls.com. Now, in a couple of weeks, here on Golf Smarter, we're going to have another episode with Sam Hogan of TwoGuysWithGolfBalls.com, and he's going to be answering your questions about golf balls. Which are the best for your game? And what's the difference between brands and the different balls inside that brand? Please submit any question about golf balls you'd like by using hashtag GolfSmarter or hashtag TwoGuysWithGolfBalls on social media, or simply click on the golf ball questions button on the homepage at golfsmarter.com. Each week we end with a quote from Dr. Joe Parent, author of Zen Golf, the most popular mental game book in the history of the game. And this week he says, mental game obstacles are like sandbags tied to your body. How well would you swing if you had sandbags hanging from your wrists, hips, knees, elbows, and neck? And Dr. Joe's job is to help you identify those sandbags and untie each of the knots so the bags fall off and you're free to make the swing you already know how to make.